Do you want to learn the tools and strategies that can propel you to the next level in life? Do you want to understand how to maximize your fullest potential? Since 2001, Empower You has impacted and changed the lives of tens of thousands of people from around the world. And now we bring the life-changing experience to you. So welcome to the Empower You podcast with Brent Williams and Byron Dempsey, the podcast that delves into the ins and outs of the Empower You program and gives you a behind-the-scenes glimpse into what really goes on at these life-changing events.
All right, welcome back to the Empower You podcast. This is going to be our very first episode of money. As we mentioned, we're going to do lots. It's a big section, very, very important, especially for young people. For me, who I interview a lot of people about what we don't learn in school, this is the number one thing that comes up. And I've already told you that. But when I've quizzed a lot of people, they say, what do you wish you learned in school? Money and finance. So this is really important. This episode, we're going to go more into, money mindset, your why, bit of the behind the scenes of why you want money and all that sort of stuff. Other episodes will go into the different ways of investing and all the tactical stuff. So I guess we'll start off with what is your why and, why is money and finance such an important section to you?
Yeah. Well, I'll jump ahead a little bit and then we'll go back to the origin of it. But Empower You, I think that's one of the unique things that Empower You does do is we do have a section on money and finance. I know that for you and I, we certainly connected on that when we first met, when you were like, oh, wow, you talk about money and finance because nobody does it. Nobody. And it's incredible.
And I'm not sure why, because it's not that complicated, the stuff we're talking about.
It isn't. And that's the thing. I found that by talking about it, even in 2 hours, we have about 2 hours that Empower You to talk about it. Of course, we go into it in a lot more detail in our advanced programs and ongoing education, but people's eyes light up. And what it does, it demystifies it. I think so many people when it comes to money and finance, maybe there's a lot of your beliefs around money play a big part in whether you can attract money into your life and whether you want to pursue wealth. Whether people feel that they're not worthy of it, they're not smart enough. People think you need to be really educated. You actually don't. And so I do hope that this podcast, certainly the conversations around money, demystifies what it is to be wealthy and how to go about building wealth in your life. So for me, I'm very grateful that I had a really big why. I always talk about when we discuss anything around money, there's two sides to it. There's the why you want to build wealth, and how you build wealth. And so often people focus on the how.
Yeah.
Show me how. What people really need to understand is if your why is not strong enough, you're never going to implement the how.
And the whys are often very surface level. It's like, why do you want money? Because I want to travel. I want to do this stuff. That is good, but it's like everyone kind of wants to do that. And it's very surface level. It's not deep. It's not a real why.
Yeah. And maybe what we can do is we can help the listeners with this particular podcast unpack that why in more detail.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think, the clearer you are with a real why, not just I want Ferraris and I want to travel and I want to be, that's everyone wants to do that. That's not a real surprise. Really? Wow, I never heard that before.
Yeah, you want to have a wealthy lifestyle? Of course you do.
Yeah, that goes without saying. So I think it's just getting real clarity, because the more emotionally connected we are to the reason, the why, the easier it's going to be to take the action on the how. So for me, my why, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be a movie director. That was my big dream. And I knew that, well, I didn't know, but my perception of filmmaking was it would be a hard career to pursue, particularly being a producer or a director. There's no university degree you can take to just get a qualification and do it. So you really need to forge your own path. And I figured that if I could take care of my financial future and build wealth, I could leverage the most valuable commodity, which is our time. And if I could buy back my time by building wealth through business property shares, then I could pursue my passion for passion's sake, not because I needed to make money. So
as in you can make movies and make a loss and you're still feeling good.
Exactly. I wasn't bound by this needs to be a career that needs to work for me, because most people in film will start with the intention of being in film but never actually make it.
Yeah.
It's a starving artist industry and only a small percentage make it. So I knew it would be a long haul game for me. This was a lifestyle choice. This was something that might take 20, 30, 40 years. So playing the long game, I want to be smart and strategic about how I could fund my dream of filmmaking. So I feel that I was very fortunate that my why was very strong from a young age, which ultimately fueled my motivation to get educated on finance, money and finance. I mean, the whole reason why Empower You is even here was because I wasn't seeking out personal development, which is what Empower You is. I wasn't looking for that.
Because it wasn't as big back then, was it?
No, it wasn't. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of Tony Robbins. I didn't know anyone like that. I never heard of Zig Ziglar's or Bob Proctor's or Jim Rowan's. I didn't know any of these people. And so my first seminar I attended, which ultimately was primarily personal development, I went there because I'm going to teach you about money and finance. I went there because the presenter said, I'm going to teach you how to build wealth in property and how to get into the share market and to build a business. And that's what appealed to me. And a byproduct of going to the event was all this personal development, which was really ultimately the prize from the experience. But the reason I went there was to get financially educated.
And I think a lot of people, it's a big selling point from Empower You as well. It's like, look, we do goal setting, we do this stuff, and a lot of people love that, but it's like we do money and finance. Oh, yes. And I wanted to comment, we haven't spoken about it yet in the podcast, but from 0 to 7, 95% of who you are is, created in that small timeline. The same applies to money and finance, right? So if you've got this relationship with money and finance, like your parents, when you ask, how much was our house? Oh, no, I can't tell you that. How much was that new dress, mum? I can't tell you that. And there's all these things, from childhood, you're going to be like, oh, I shouldn't talk about money. I think nowadays we are way more open to talking about our sex life than we are about our own financial situation, which blows my mind.
It's very taboo.
Yeah,
it's very taboo. People are very funny about talking about their incomes, how much they've saved or in debt they are. It's a very private and personal conversation, which I don't fully understand. I've been relatively transparent, not to the point of like saying I brag to people or look at me, but people ask me questions. I don't hide, but most people are funny with that. And it is true. I think so many people develop their beliefs around money from a very young age. If a parent says, oh, that's too much money or I can't afford it, or, you got to work hard your whole life to earn a living. Like these are the kind of things that people grow up with. And therefore they have a mentality about, well, for me to build wealth, if, for example, if you believe that all rich people are rich because they take advantage of people, then you probably won't build wealth because you don't want to take advantage of people.
Because you don't want to become rich, and then because when you're rich, you're taking advantage of people.
That's
Therefore,
right.
Your subconscious is going to avoid becoming rich because that's got negative connotations.
Yeah, which, it's interesting when I talk about it, but I always start off when I talk about money and I say, what are your beliefs around money? And people say, money doesn't buy you happiness.
Money is the root of all evil.
Money is the root of all evil. You got to spend money, make money, all these things. But it's important conversations to have because, again, if you have a belief or a mentality that money is easy to make and will come to you effortlessly, you'll find it a lot easier to attract it into your life because of your mindset. And that cannot be overstated enough. I have to emphasize that because there's so many books out there, CDs, podcasts, where you can get the how. And we'll talk about some of the how.
Because the how is exciting, it's sexy, it's fun.
It is.
It's the, people, that's what people pay for.
Yes.
They don't want to pay for the why because it's like, if I can just get that straight to the how, I can skip that whole step.
Yeah. The thing is, this is the key thing. The how is what people want. The why is what they need.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a big difference. We always get so excited about the what we want, but what is it that we really need? Nobody necessarily, because they don't understand it, nobody wants Empower You, but they need Empower You. And they only realize they need it once they go through it. And so, I think that your reason is so, so important. So when we talk about building wealth, and you started off right at the beginning by saying, do you want wealth because you want to travel and things like that? They're all, again, surface based.
Sure.
What you got to do is you got to chunk up to the highest reason. What is your highest reason for it? And if you don't know why, you've got to start thinking about it.
For example, let's go to the travel one. I want to travel. Most people want to travel. Let's say your why was to travel. I want to travel because I want to experience new cultures and develop myself as a person. I want to see what the world is like out there. It's a more powerful why as opposed to I just want to travel.
Yeah.
And that's just an example. But when I run the money and finance section, I think I'd split it up into two halves. The first half is money mindset and then a second half. So we're saying 50% into why, 50% into how. That's the importance of it.
Yeah. This is the thing. At the end of the 2 hours that we spend, we talk about compound interest and we talk about a little bit about managed funds and property and then we tease out some outcomes based on rate of return. We say, well, if you got a 10% return over this amount of time, putting in this amount of dollars, this is your outcome. And everyone goes, wow, that seems amazing. That's super exciting. So if we can get invested in that outcome, we then reverse engineer and go, what are the steps I need to take now to get there? At the end of every Empower You money section, people are like, I could do this. But few actually follow through with it.
Yeah.
And it pains me. Like I even say, if I've got a room of 100 people, one of the first things we say is set up a bank account. And people might be saying, well, I've already got a bank account. Then you've got to set up another one. And the reason is you want to have one bank account that literally all it does is it saves 10% of your income for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that money you're going to use to then invest. Now, this is a simple step to take. Go set up a bank account. It takes you 15 minutes online to do that. And if you're under 18, there's plenty of banks that will probably put some money in your bank account to do that because they want you as a customer. Yet if I say you got 24 hours to do it, I would think at best 20% of the audience will actually set it up.
10 probably.
And how easy is it to do it?
Yeah.
And so what that, for years I used to get frustrated. I'm like, do I not have influence? Are people just that lazy? And it just, what it constantly reinforces to me is their why is not strong enough. They walk away going, oh, that was nice. I'd like all those things, but I'm not emotionally connected enough to that desired outcome to take the required action to get there. I mean, what is motivation? Motivation is your emotional investment in the potential of your future. So when we talk about finance, if you're emotionally invested, really emotionally invested in the potential of your future, and you're really aligned with that's what I absolutely want, you'll do it. You'll do it.
And look, we do money and finance at like 2 or 3 o'clock on day 2. So we've had them for a while. Hopefully they're a bit motivated, they're excited. So when we hit them in the money and finance section, it should be like, okay, let's do this, as opposed to doing it as the first one when we have no rapport with them.
That's right.
So it's like there's clearly a reason we put it there. It's such an important section. We get so many questions during it. But I guess going back to the why, how do we find out why? So we, at the beginning we say, what is your why? And people put up their hands, family, friends, I want to travel, all that sort of stuff. How do we get deeper? How do we figure out what our true why is?
Well, this is really aligned with goal setting, isn't it? And you're right. We do put money and finance towards the end of the weekend. And part of the reason, which is rapport, totally, is a big motivation for having it then. But the other reason is because we've talked about so many things about their future life that they should have painted a clearer picture of what they want. So when we get to that section, it's like, yesterday we talked about goal setting. I did a visualization. I got super clear on where I want to be over the next 5, 10, 20 years. Now I see how this plays a huge part in all of those dreams, goals, and ambitions coming to fruition. But to further extend on your question, I just think it's about spending however much time to get really clear on what you want. And when I say what you want, it's got to be as detailed as possible. I'm talking about one of the exercises I would do is a 7-year plan. And what the 7-year plan is, write a 1-page out. What would one day look like in your life in 7 years' time? Let's future pace 7 years from now. We always overestimate what we can do in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can do in 10. So let's say 7 years from now, where do you want to be? What does a day in Byron Dempsey's life look like? And really write it out in great detail and be emotionally invested in that as possible. And so if you're really clear on that, then the why is there. And then you're more prepared to take the action for the how. I think I did a webinar maybe a year ago. It was a funny title. I called it, what did I call it? Technology, the Cancer of Progress. And what I was getting at is we have more distractions than ever before. I mean, look at this pandemic is going on, disrupting our lives, but we can plug into Netflix or a PlayStation
screen time,
or TikTok.
Lockdown screen time is not good.
Yeah, no. And all those things are distractions from us being on purpose. So when you do a 7-year vision or a 100 list, a bucket list, or you come up with some short, medium, long-term goals, then what you're doing is you are starting to blur out the distractions and get laser focused on your purpose. And I think when you're laser focused on your purpose and you've got real clarity on the next 5, 10, 20 years, then the conversation around money totally dovetails into your action steps and strategic plans.
And fact is, I think people need to be prioritizing money so much more nowadays because it's harder. It's not unlike our parents or I guess, our grandparents. You can't just go school, uni, get a job, have an income, use that income to buy a house at 25. That house is going to, compound over 20 years. It's not as easy as that nowadays.
No.
I think it's going to be really difficult. I think a lot of people whose parents have done that and they're assuming they can do the same. What's the average housing price in Sydney? 850 grand or something.
I think it's higher than that now.
Probably 900.
I think it's over $1 million in Sydney.
So let's assume it's a 100 grand deposit.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to save up 100 grand?
Yeah.
And especially if you're renting in Sydney for $300 a week, I think money and finance is be such a priority for young people. Otherwise, I worry about this generation. I worry about how they're going to survive long term. I think the gap between the really rich and the really poor could be bigger than ever with this generation.
Yeah.
Because a few people are going to recognize this and they're going to make a lot of money, and the rest are kind of just going to probably be renting for a lot of their life or have a property that, taken ages and ages to buy. So I just think it's super, super important we get on top of this. Now, obviously, there are stuff like crypto, which is new. There's new stuff coming in, which, you know, is super volatile. And you could say, well, you didn't have access to that, and we do. So there's lots of new stuff if you're creative and you're open-minded. I think the key message of our whole section is just get educated.
Yeah.
There's only so much we can teach in 2 hours. It's like, we want to get them motivated, excited, teach them a bunch of stuff. But then at the end, it's like, go learn more. We talk about 3 ways to invest. You know, the hidden fourth one we say is kind of yourself. Go invest in yourself. Well, mate, do you want to have a conversation on that real quick when it comes to, I mean, because your first thing was investing in yourself, which got you to start Empower You by going to that personal development program.
Yeah. Look, so we talk about a bunch of principles that empower you. And if we take a step back, we probably should articulate what is money. I mean, what is money anyway? Money is a means of exchange.
It's just an idea.
It's just and money is an idea. We certainly know that with the Sydney Harbour story, but it's just a means of exchange. And so, you know, it went from bartering, cows and goats and hay to gold and silver to then a currency, which we know as, you know, cash money now, which is probably going to move into crypto. Like that's a whole other thing. So what we just talked about is a means of exchange. So how do you create value to be then compensated for that? And that's the monetary system that we're in. But in terms of investing in yourself, this again reconnects to the why. But yeah, you are your best asset. And if you invest in yourself and that knowledge, you have that forever. And this comes back to mindset, which is one of the big themes of this whole entire podcast purpose. Is how do we develop your mentality and your mindset? I know that I have a wealthy mindset because I've had so much exposure to people that have the results that I want, that have given me the mindset of what it takes to be wealthy. I know a lot of people that have what I would call a poverty scarcity mentality around money, that the money's never enough. I mean, you know, for example, you know, my dad was a huge reference for me as a kid about money. Now, I want to make it very clear that I never went without, you know, like wanting, like my parents provided for me. I wasn't spoiled, but I also wasn't deprived. But my dad would complain about money. I'm sure everybody listening to this right now knows someone in your life that will complain about money. Even if it's like, geez, those hot chips, $6, and they charge you 50 cents for the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
You know, it's
even
like,
though it's valid. Yeah. Even though it's valid, it's just like, it's a constantly, if you're constantly complaining about everything when it comes to money, it's just going to, you know, eat into your subconscious. So you don't want to, you know, attract money.
Imagine you got like 2 bowls and you're filling them up, you know, with, let's I don't know, ping pong balls. What fills up first? Your positive comments around money?
Right.
Or your negative ones?
Everyone would say negative.
Yeah. And then you go, well, if you've got a real negative mentality around money, can you see how it becomes much more difficult to overcome those blocks? Because I say this a lot too, you know, often we're the only person standing in the way of our own success. And so much about building wealth is just the way in which you see it and also how you see yourself in that game. So investing in yourself, what it does, point in case the money section at Empower You, the amount of participants at the end that go, oh my God, like, I get it now. Like all that stuff they're talking about in economics and compounding, I never understood it. But now that it's been articulated in a way, I feel inspired to do something. And so you've got to invest in, you've got to be reading books. You've got to be listening to podcasts. Like go get Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
It's a classic.
It is an absolute classic. He's one of the world's leading authorities on building wealth. There's another great book called The Cash Flow Quadrant, The E-Myth. So many. But yeah, you've got to invest in yourself. Read books, listen to podcasts.
And I think a key, and we'll definitely talk about the investing part of it, but it's not how, like we don't talk about how to earn money as in like what job you get.
No.
What should you go do? That doesn't matter. No. You can be an engineer on 100K, you could be a nurse on 70K, you could be whatever it is. It doesn't matter how much you're earning. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, probably the first misconception a lot of young people have. How do you be rich? Oh, I'll be a doctor.
Yes.
Well, if you're smart with your money and you're a doctor, sure. But that's not the way to be rich. It's not getting a good paying job. It's what you do with your money over time.
I'm so glad you brought that point up. I'm so glad because we could have missed that. And there's an argument to say this is the most important part of this conversation right now. It's not how much you earn, it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
I know people making $300,000 a year that have a poor lifestyle in and they overindulge. And I know we can have a conversation about this and they'll be in debt. And I know there's a friend of mine makes $50,000 a year. You know, that's
pretty small.
Pretty small,
especially
in comparison.
Sydney.
Yeah, in Sydney. And this person has a multi-million-dollar property portfolio because they started investing from a very young age and putting 10% of their money away, got their first property, paid it off, and then they've gone again. They own like 6 properties now. So, you know, the average Australian, and this is amazing stat. the average Australian will spend 102% of their income. And how do we do this? Credit cards, interest-free loans for periods of time. Like you got to, like JB Hi-Fi, the latest entertainment system, no money down, 24 months interest-free, this kind of thing. So what we're creating is a culture of perpetual debt. We're borrowing from Peter to pay from Paul. Like the amount of credit card companies that'll get you to refinance with them to pay off another credit card Afterpay.
Do you know the crazy thing is, because we watch all this stuff in America and they talk about having a credit history, and you want to get a credit card while you're young so you can build up your credit history. That's not how it works in Australia.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I didn't even know that until I was like 19.
Yeah, let's demystify that right now. It's
what?
irrelevant. Your credit card, paying that off is, we watch too many movies from America. You're absolutely right. And I also think when we talk about building wealth and investing in yourself, I just lost my train of thought there. Give me a moment.
Well, while you're thinking, I wanted to say, because I used Afterpay for the very first time 2 days ago.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Because I wanted to just try it out.
Yeah.
And it's amazing if you're good with it.
Yeah.
Afterpay, actually something that I've only ever had a credit card once, and it was for Apple. Because when I first got my job with Glenn, who I needed a laptop. I needed a good one because I was editing 24/7.
Yeah.
And so I got a $5,000 laptop and I couldn't afford that. So I got a credit card, 18 months interest free, and I paid it off within 18 months. So I didn't pay any interest on it.
Yeah.
And when it's amazing when you don't have to pay any interest. Same with Afterpay. It was $600 I spent. I pay Afterpay $600 if I pay it within time, and I'll easy pay within time. But it's where they get you if you don't pay it in time. And it's just your relationship. These companies and things can be incredible if you've got a good relationship with it, and that's what this whole section is.
Yeah. Your relationship to money.
Yeah, it's if you let it get away with you, and you can at 15 you start using Afterpay, and suddenly Christmas time you can't afford these presents. Oh, just Afterpay it, and now you're paying 6 months, and then you get something that you couldn't really afford because you figure you can pay for it now. So it's really, these companies are amazing if your relationship with money and these companies are good. Otherwise, they can be catastrophic.
That's right, and I think one of the I now remember what I was wanting to talk about now. You have to ask yourself the question, what habits do you have around money? Are you someone that needs instant gratification in that, I want the newest thing, I want it now, whatever it takes, and you'll just borrow, steal, spend, whatever, and just get it? Or are you someone who has delayed gratification, meaning you're prepared to wait, to take time to save? So a credit card, I've had credit cards my whole life. And I've been very responsible with them. I never accrue interest because the interest rates are extremely high on a credit card. They can be 17 to 20% interest rate.
You know, the average credit card in Australia takes 16 years to pay off if you just pay the minimum repayments. Yeah. So to clarify what we mean by that, when you get a credit card and you pay for something, they'll say the minimum repayment is $10 a month or something. That's because at that payment, it's going to take you 16 years to pay off, and you're going to be probably paying like half of that in interest. Yeah, which is insane.
And that's what the bank wants you to do.
Yeah,
the bank wants you to owe them forever, and keep paying them. I mean, it's ultimately how home loans work. Like they make more on the interest than they do the actual property. Oftentimes,
I worked with one of my clients years ago. They specialize in getting you to pay off your home loan in half the amount of time. And they show the math of the money you can save if you pay it off in 15 years instead of 30. And it's like, on $1 million home, it's like $200,000. Yeah. I don't know if that's the exact numbers, but it's a lot. Because how could that be? It's still the same price for the home because of interest. Yeah. It's 15 years of no interest you're not paying now. Yeah. And so it's super important to understand this. Again, we both have credit cards, we've used this stuff. It's not bad. It can be bad depending on how you use it.
And I think as well, coming back to the comment you made about paying off a property in a quicker time frame, my counter argument to that.
Oh, there's always lots.
Yeah, and this is where this whole conversation of a multiple podcasts will get interesting.
Is that you could get another property?
Yeah, it's opportunity costs.
Yes.
So this comes down to strategy. Yeah. But this comes down to mindset and education. And most people that are listening probably don't even know what we're talking about now. And so that's why it's important to invest in yourself. Because if you can understand really quickly, let's say I bought a property for $500,000. I put down a $50,000 deposit. I got a $450,000 mortgage. I could do one of two things. I can pay that down aggressively, which then gives me an unencumbered, meaning no debt, asset of $500,000. And by the time I paid it off, let's say it's gone up to $750,000.
Which you now own completely.
Correct. So I now have $750,000 that I could sell, cash out. Obviously, there's stamp duty and capital gains, all that, but putting that aside. Or I can just have this passive income coming in. And let's call it $500 a week in rent, about that. So you could pay it off. You've now got $500 a week coming into your pocket, and you've got a $750,000 asset you could sell. Now, most people go, well, that's a great outcome. And for a lot of people, that is a great outcome. But for me, if I was to do that, rather than paying off the $450,000 mortgage, that cash I've just spent, I would redeploy that and buy another 2 properties.
Yes.
And those 2 properties go up by $250,000 each. I don't have a $750,000 asset. I now have a $2.25 million asset, maybe with a debt of, I don't know, let's call it 1.5 million, but then I've got $750,000 in equity. It's the same amount, same outcome, but I've got a bigger asset.
Yeah. And I will say the other one is a lot easier and it's safer.
Yeah.
So, and that's what most people do, which is great. But I'm the same as you. It's like, well, yeah, that's still really good. And most people won't even do this. But that's what most, everyone I know who went to high school, most of the parents have something like this.
Yeah.
They've got a property like that. And they might, once they pay that off, they might start looking at investment properties.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think we got a question ages ago and one of the participants said, if I get a $100,000 grant from my grandparents, what's it called? Not a loan, but inheritance.
Inheritance, yes.
If they've got $100,000 inheritance, it's like, should I buy property? Well, number one, you probably can't because you don't have a job.
Yeah,
and so they're not,
so you can't get the finance.
Yeah, that's the first, but they don't even understand that.
Yeah, finance is the most important thing with property.
Yeah.
Everyone's caught up with the deposit. Doesn't matter. You could have half the deposit. If the bank looks at your serviceability, meaning you can't pay off the debt, they're not going to give you
If
the
you're
money.
18 with a job at Pizza Hut and you're asking for $1 million property because you've got a $100,000 loan, probably not.
And this is education. This is investing yourself to know these things. Yeah.
And then it was just like, well, let's say you had $500,000. You could buy one property off the spot. You could buy $500,000 property and you're good to go. And that makes sense in a lot of people's minds. And I totally get it. Or as you mentioned, you could get 4 properties at a $125,000 deposit. And now you've got 4 properties that are increasing by 10% per year.
And this comes down to your risk appetite and your strategies. For some people, they want cash flow, meaning I just want one property, give me $500 a week. That meets my lifestyle needs. That's all I need. Where others are like, I don't need the cash flow. I've got a good paying job. I want capital growth. I want long-term growth. And so when we talk about buy, pay off or buy, leverage and grow more, you can do 2. Like my buddy Chris Gray, for example, his strategy would be own 20 properties, get the LVR, loan to value ratio, to 50%, sell half, pay off half. So I remember Jack talking about the seasons, in terms of investing,
Jim
like
Rohn's strategy.
the winter stuff. And so when you look at it, maybe your first 5-10 years is to grind and to leverage, but then your next 10 or 20 is to consolidate. Again, we're probably getting too much into specific details, and we can do a whole podcast on property. But I guess if nothing else, let this be whetting the appetite for the listener to go, wow, there's so much that we can talk about. But fundamentally what this main message is today is you need to develop a money mindset, and that's about investing in yourself. Get real clarity on your reason. And if your reason, your why is strong enough, then you'll do something. If it's not, find it. For example, if like I got 2 kids, and if somebody, God forbid, they kidnapped them and said, right, you have 3 years. That's a lot of time. It's almost 1,000 days, or over 1,000 days.
Yeah, it is.
It is over 1,000 days. Yeah. You've got 1,000 days to come up with $5 million, and if you don't, you're never going to see your kids again. Would I get the $5 million?
Probably in 2.
Yeah. There's not even a question.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing.
You could probably get it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you had to.
If I had to. If the reason is strong enough, you'll make it happen because you'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And people always say, yeah, of course you would. Well, let's just take the leverage out and go, well, you're going to make $5 million in 3 years. Oh, I don't know if I could. Yeah. See, it's not about the how. In that conversation, it's about the why. And if I don't think there's a clearer picture that could be drawn.
Look, it's an extreme, but that's the whole point of the metaphor. Yeah. It's an extreme.
Yeah, the leverage.
But if your why is strong enough, the filmmaker, whatever it is, then you just replace your kids being kidnapped with your why.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going towards.
Yeah.
It means when the going gets tough, you keep going.
And this comes back to pillar number 1, comfort zones.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a dear friend of mine named Ingrid Kent, and she's an international businesswoman. She speaks on stages, 5,000 people at a time, like a rock star. And she was telling me that she did a talk one time in India, and there was, I don't know how many thousands of people in the audience, but she said she only spoke for like 3 hours. There were some people that literally spent 5 days on trains to get to that 3-hour conference. Now, when you think about that, that's really inspiring to me. And do you think that those people going those 5 days are going to listen to what Ingrid says?
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, Ingrid speaks at our camp, and everyone loves her. But do I think that they listen to her with the same intent as someone who's traveled for 5 days? Their motivation and reason, their why is so strong, they're going to apply it. And so the challenge with building wealth is if you don't have enough of a pain or pleasure, meaning if there's enough struggle in your life, you'll do something about it. If you're connected to your reason, your why, you'll do something about it. We live in a great country in Australia. You talk about this a lot. We're born as a 6 to 10 life. So the enemy of a great life's a good one. And so for building wealth, we all say, I'd love to be rich, but I'm comfortable enough now.
And that's the problem. That's why how often do you listen to someone inspiring like Oprah or Tony Robbins or whatever, and their story is like, I was dirt broke, I was homeless, whatever. They have this tragic story. Most successful people have some sort of tragic story, whether they're hamming it up or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's because they were in so much pain, they had to get out of it. Yeah. There's no way my kids are going to live like this. Therefore, they've got a huge why. And so living in Australia, most people I know around me, no one's really struggling to that degree. Even with COVID hitting, we're not struggling to that degree. And so we don't have that massive amount of pain, and we don't have a huge reason to go to the huge amount of pleasure because we're very comfortable.
Yeah.
And as a result, most people will just get a job. They won't understand the concept of money. They won't bother to learn about it. And because I think they can live the same way as their parents or their grandparents, which I have to get that across. It's not going to happen. No. Money needs to be a priority.
Yeah.
It needs, especially, that's the whole thing when we talk about like housing loan, we'll probably talk about this, but like in the past 50 to 100 years, women are working in the workforce now. So now you've got 2 people working full time. So houses have gone up a lot because I know people can afford to pay more. It's like, man, living sick as a single person is incredibly difficult.
It is, yes.
Life is amazing. I think there's so many opportunities, but it's also a lot more difficulties, and I think money is one of those.
And a money struggles just makes it all that much more difficult.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. I'll finish up on these last 2 points. You just said so many successful people share their horror story, their kind of rags to riches story. And then you might be thinking, well, I don't have that, so I can't. Well, if you don't have it, that's why you got to get clear on your why. Because you're either going to do it because you've come from struggle and pain, or you're going to do it, like me, for example, because you're sold out to a dream that you really want. For me, filmmaking was the dream, and that allowed me to feel the motivation to take the action, to understand the how, because my why for doing it was super clear. The other thing that I want to say as well is that pain, struggle, a huge motivation for me. And this point, I really hope I make this clear. Talking about money, for me, the reason for talking about money was so I didn't need to worry about money. Like, think about the last time, and this is to the viewers now, think about the last time you worried about money. Was it when I don't know, maybe you're not right now, but maybe when you went out with some friends and you said, let's go for dinner or movie, and you go, well, I can afford dinner or a movie. Like, when was the last time the money was a choice for you where you had to compromise?
When you open your bank account, are you scared?
Yeah.
When you click on your bank account, like, does your heart start racing? Do you go, oh, what's it gonna be? Oh.
Yeah. Are you waiting for Friday for that pay to land?
Yeah.
And if not, you're in trouble. I mean, that's the position I never wanted to be in. So it wasn't about being a multimillionaire. It was about not having to be consumed with the daily challenges that money can bring to so many people. I mean, it's the biggest saboteur of so many relationships is money struggles.
Financial stress is the number one leading reason for divorce.
Yeah.
And I worked with, I'll finish up on this point, but I worked with, I don't know if I told you about them, these guys who ran an educational company for Pacific Islanders.
Yes.
Pacific Islanders traditionally are renters. They don't have much wealth and they're renters. So they want to break that stigma. They help them get into the property market. And they do it. We'll have guys, 2 parents, 8 children, living out in some of the poorest suburbs in Sydney with 8 children, they're buying homes. How? And the first thing they do is they sit them down and they go through their accounts and they go through what are you spending your money on, and they whip them into shape and say, look, cut it. Even a big reason for them, they call it falalala lovers. It's like at church, they donate their money. And it's because they're such caring people, and you can't give away that much. You can't even feed your children.
Yeah.
And so it's like they have a real serious conversation with them. That's the first step they take, and then they set up everything. They track their money. It's there. It's not how much you earn. It's what you do with it.
Yeah.
And that's the very first point I open with.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about that point. Lifestyle inflation.
Yeah. So whatever's measures improve. Get real clarity on what you're spending, and then say what can be cut. And there's a balance between living in the now and living for the future.
Yeah.
So you got to strike that balance.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be different. Like, my buddy Dale was all about live for the future, where I was so much about living for now. And so that was a real great counterpoint for me to find the balance between, he would always say, like, if you have a meal, right, and you've got a steak which is the best part of the dish. Then you got your mash, then you got your veggies. He would say to me, I start with the veggies because that's the thing I want to eat least. Then I do the mash, then I finish with the steak. My argument to that was, but then the steak's cold.
Yeah, right.
So it's finding the balance between the two. But this is where it comes down to strategy and planning. But all of this happens through education, which is about mindset.
So I do think you do have to make some sacrifices, like going out once a week instead of 3 times a week or whatever it is. But you don't have to give up on your youth or whatever. Like when you see people always ask Gary Vaynerchuk, we both know him, you know, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self? And he'd say, have fun.
Yeah.
Don't be such a wound up workaholic.
So serious.
It's like, go travel a bit, go to some parties, like still work hard, but do this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's coming from like the hustle king himself. So it's like, finding out about balance.
That's
and it's tricky to do. And you've got to experiment with it and figure out what it is for you. Maybe it means a drinking example. Maybe it means you just pre-drink. This is what my friends do.
Yeah.
They'll just, they'll sneak vodka in or they'll you just pre-drink. So all you need to do one beer when you're out.
Yeah. Well, that was me back in the day. Before you hit the nightclubs at 11, you'd go to the RSL for the $3 schooners.
Yeah.
The $4 bourbon and Cokes. And then you'd go to you'd have one or two of the ones.
Yeah, instead of the $20 cocktails.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember when I started out and my first, and this is a really important point, and I know we'll do an entire podcast on dream, struggle, prize.
For sure.
We'll do a whole podcast on that. But in short, for whatever dream, there's an equal struggle. And through that struggle, you earn the prize. And so I know when I started off my career, I was working 18-hour days, 7-day weeks. And a lot of my friends were like, you're crazy. This is ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, I still went out and partied. I still traveled overseas. I did those things. But I did work harder than most. And now they say to me, "You're so lucky. You don't work so much. You're with your kids all the time. You travel. You do all these things. Because I earned the right early on. So it's just finding that balance and what's right for you. This everyone's going to find a different fit, but they're the questions you got to ask yourself. What is it that you want? How do you want to go about it? Who are the mentors and role models you can attract in your life? Who are the recipes you can follow? What books you're listening to? All these things impact.
So money and finance.
Money and finance.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah, Richest Man in
Two
Babylon.
good ones to start with.
Yep.
So we just spoke about the 10%. There's an entire book and it's wrapped in a story. It's very fun to listen to and easy to read. Cash Flow Quadrant. I mean, just Google
I'd
money
also
and finance
Google,
books.
the Parable of the Pipeline is another great one too. There's a great little video about Pablo and Bruno. They've got a, really quickly, they're at a village, these two guys. And they want to build, they're both very ambitious. They want to make money. And so one way of making money is to get buckets from this.
This is
you
great.
know this?
I know this story. It's fantastic.
Yeah, from
Maybe we
this
should
river.
save this because I feel
Sure,
like
we'll save it. Okay, Pablo and Bruno for another episode.
Yes, because I
Okay,
want to do like
you know
a
what
5
it
minutes.
is?
It's
the
so
buckets
good.
and the pipe. Yeah,
it's
okay.
really good. I wish we.
I literally showed my 8-year-old son.
Yeah.
That was a part of a deal with him getting a Transformer recently. I said, you need to commit an hour of money and finance education with your dad. So I talked about gold and silver, means of exchange, and I showed him the Pablo and Bruno video.
We should show this in Empower You, I think.
Yeah.
It's like a 5-minute video.
Yeah.
That's really good. And then I've got money and finance episodes on the Driven Young podcast. So
Yeah.
go check those out. But otherwise that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Empower You podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. For more information on our live events, please head to www.empoweryou.com.au. We look forward to having you join us again for the next episode of the Empower You podcast.